When we talk about shocking military strikes, it's hard to imagine something more dramatic than the destruction of Israel's naval base in Ashkelon after being hit by a Falcon-9 missile launched from the United Arab. This was not just a strike on a piece of infrastructure. It was a direct blow to Israel's image of maritime strength, to its propaganda, and to the myth of invulnerability it has cultivated for years. On one side, we see how a modern missile with advanced design, powerful performance, and cutting-edge precision can transform an entire naval base into rubble in a matter of seconds. On the other side, we see how fragile a supposedly modern defense system can be when confronted with a weapon designed specifically to defeat it. The Falcon-9 in this case is not to be confused with a space rocket, but a domestically developed missile project that represents the technological ambitions of the U.S. The key features include a satellite guidance system, high payload capacity, and penetration capability against radar and missile defense networks. From a performance perspective, this missile can travel hundreds of kilometers at supersonic speeds, maneuver during flight, and deliver a warhead weighing more than 1 ton. The design makes it effective against large military installations such as hangars, fuel depots, warships docked in harbor, or radar complexes. Its sleek body is built with lightweight composite materials, optimized for both speed and stealth. The missile's ability to perform evasive maneuvers mid-flight is particularly significant because it directly challenges Israel's Iron Dome and other interception systems that rely on predictive. Ashkelon Naval Base was not a minor outpost. It was one of the cornerstones of Israel's maritime power, strategically positioned along the southern coast to monitor traffic to Gaza and the Red Sea. It contained sprawling docks for destroyers and patrol boats, ammunition warehouses, submarine service facilities, and advanced radar systems linked into Israel's nationwide defense grid. In other words, this was not just a naval base. It was the beating heart of Israel's southern maritime operations. The symbolism of its destruction cannot be overstated. What was once promoted as a fortress of dominance is now a smoking crater. The impact of the Falcon-9 strike was immediate and brutal. The explosion ripped through hardened concrete bunkers, ignited massive fuel reserves, and set docked warships ablaze. Eyewitness descriptions compare the blast wave to an earthquake, shattering windows miles away and leaving a crater that looks more like the set of an apocalyptic movie than a functioning military base. Entire hangars collapsed into twisted steel, ships that had been proudly displayed as modern assets sank in flames, and radar systems toppled like children's toys. The supposed cutting-edge technology was rendered useless, proving that glossy brochures and military parades do not always reflect battlefield reality. The casualty figures stunned observers worldwide. More than 15,200 Israeli military personnel were reported killed in the attack. In modern warfare, such a number is almost unthinkable from a single strike. Usually, losses are counted in dozens, sometimes hundreds, but thousands wiped out in a matter of hours is something closer to the scale of 20th century total wars. Hospitals overflowed, morgues exceeded capacity, and grieving families lined up for information. The human toll makes this more than a military setback. It is a national trauma, a nightmare that reshaped Israeli society overnight. From the perspective of Israel's defense performance, the strike revealed deep flaws. The Iron Dome and David's Sling interception systems were engineered to counter short-range rockets and some ballistic threats, but the Falcon-9 combined high velocity, maneuverability, and electronic countermeasures, making interception nearly impossible. Reports suggest that radar systems tracked the missile but were unable to lock on. The end result was that Israel's billion-dollar defensive umbrella simply watched as the missile completed its trajectory. It highlights a painful truth. Even the most sophisticated systems can be neutralized by weapons purpose-built to exploit their weaknesses. What makes the event even more shocking is the origin of the missile. It did not come from Russia, the United States, or Iran, countries known for military innovation, but from the United Arab Emirates. For years, the UAE has been seen primarily as an economic hub, a center for business, luxury, tourism, and diplomacy. Few expected them to field a missile capable of shattering one of Israel's strongest bases. This is precisely what makes it unique. Israel was prepared for threats from Iran, Syria, or militant groups, but not from a Gulf state once considered outside the core conflict. By deploying the Falcon-9, the UAE sent a loud message. They cannot be underestimated, and they have crossed into the League of Nations capable of power projection through advanced weaponry. The strategic consequences of losing Ashkelon are enormous! Without it, Israel's ability to patrol the Red Sea and Gaza approaches is crippled. Logistics routes once serviced by Ashkelon must now be rerouted through bases farther away, adding delay and expense. Fuel, ammunition, and spare parts once stockpiled there are gone. Warships meant to project power have been destroyed or severely damaged. On a logistical level, this bottleneck could paralyze operations across the entire southern front. On a symbolic level, it is even worse. The destruction of Ashkelon undermines Israel's claims of maritime supremacy and casts doubt on its broader military posture. Propaganda has always been central to Israel's defense narrative. The idea of invincibility, of high-tech superiority, has been repeated for decades. But the Falcon-9 strike shattered that myth in one night. Local Israeli media began openly mocking their own government, saying that the national defense was no stronger than a free cafe Wi-Fi signal easy to disrupt, unreliable under pressure. This collapse of narrative may hurt Israel more than the physical loss. Once the world sees that its fortresses can fall, deterrence is weakened, enemies gain confidence, and allies quietly reconsider their commitments. For Israeli soldiers who survived, the psychological impact is devastating. Watching more than 15,000 comrades vanish in a single attack is the kind of trauma that breaks morale. Reports from intelligence sources suggest rising distrust within the ranks, as soldiers question whether their commanders can actually protect them or are simply giving speeches for the cameras. Motivation to fight becomes fragile, easily shattered under further stress. In the long term, this could cause recruitment problems, as the image of the army shifts from invincible shield to vulnerable target. Internationally, the strike set off shockwaves. Countries that usually respond with carefully worded condemnations suddenly realize that military realities have changed. The UAE nation, once seen as a financial sponsor or diplomatic broker, had demonstrated direct military capability. No longer is it just about issuing statements. A new era is emerging in Middle Eastern conflict, where Gulf nations may use their wealth not just for soft power, but for hard, decisive strikes. For Israel's adversaries, this was a spectacle of revenge. For others, it was a dangerous precedent that raised the stakes across the region. The Falcon-9 missile now stands as both a technological and political symbol. Technologically, it has proven itself under combat conditions, leaping in reputation above many untested weapons systems. Politically, it has elevated the UAE into a new category of regional military power. Psychologically, it has scarred Israel, showing that even its most guarded assets are vulnerable. In modern warfare, battlefield validation is everything, and the Falcon-9 has achieved it in the most dramatic way possible. The ruins of Ashkelon look like an open wound. What used to be labeled on maps as a proud naval base may soon be tagged as permanently closed. The collapsed hangars, detonated ammo stores, and charred hulls of warships tell the story more powerfully than any press release, and the irony is sharp. All of this was triggered by Israel's decision to attack a UAE humanitarian aid vessel in the Red Sea. That ship was carrying supplies, not weapons, treating it as a threat brought in retaliation, not in words, but in a missile that flattened their most important southern base. This is karma delivered at supersonic speed. Inside Israel, the government struggled to respond. The prime minister appeared desperate to craft explanations, almost like a student caught cheating on an exam. Only this time, the cost was not grades, but lives. The public's anger mounted, protests broke out, and political credibility eroded. On social media worldwide, critics pointed out the bitter irony. The nation that paraded its Iron Dome and boasted about defensive genius was outsmarted by a single missile from an Arab neighbor. Memes and harsh commentary spread, reinforcing the humiliation. The domestic political damage was immense. Thousands of families were plunged into grief. Mass funerals stretched resources to the limit. Citizens began questioning not just the tactics, but the very logic of leadership decisions. Was attacking a humanitarian vessel really worth losing a base and more than 15,000 soldiers? If the answer was yes, then the reasoning was deeply flawed. What was meant to be a demonstration of strength ended up as an exhibition of vulnerability. Instead of flexing muscles, Israel was left displaying its losses. Globally, the incident became both a cautionary tale and a dark joke. Analysts described it as the largest one-strike military loss in modern conflict. Commentators mocked the irony that Israel, long accustomed to striking others without warning, was now on the receiving end of the same tactic. The humanitarian vessel that Israel's attacked has become a symbol of this irony. A ship of aid, transformed into the spark for Israel's greatest maritime disaster. Like a small stone tossed at a glass house, it rebounded with catastrophic effect. From here, the story of Ashkelon serves as a reminder of how fragile power can be. A single missile, properly designed and strategically deployed, was enough to collapse a base, break morale, and expose the limits of propaganda. For the UAE, it was a declaration of capability. For Israel, it was a devastating lesson. In modern warfare, arrogance is dangerous. Technology may promise protection, but true security depends on humility, strategy, and the understanding that every action invites consequences.